All right, colleagues, so we will move into our superintendent's report. Good evening, Dr. Chapman.
Good evening, President Vera, Vice President Pierce, board members, our staff who are with us this evening, and community members. I'm happy to be here this evening tonight, certainly to provide an update on the work of the Community Facilities Task Force. First, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the members of the task force and remind everyone that tonight's recommendations are not final. These are the initial recommendations from the task force. Therefore, we are not requesting any board action tonight. As we've said from the beginning, community feedback is needed on what will be presented as a final recommendation to the Board of Education in June. Later in this presentation, details will be provided on how the community can provide feedback on the initial recommendations that will be presented this evening. Our vision for this work is to realign our learning communities in service of expanding programming for our students and to be aligned with the needs of our evolving community and region. We know that the learning spaces of yesterday are not preparing our students for the opportunities of tomorrow. This process allows us to redesign our learning spaces and footprint across the district. We intend to maximize our resources to provide our more robust academic and extracurricular programming, including the arts and athletics at all of our schools. This is a pivotal moment we owe to our students, and we must seize it to create space for the vision of the future. As a lifelong educator, a former teacher, principal, parent, I know that our students deserve optimal learning spaces that support our portrait of a graduate attributes. It is our obligation and duty as a district and community to take the first step and engage in these important conversations. In the Statement of Facts, which was presented and approved by the Columbus City Schools Board of Education in September of 2023, that was another opportunity for us to outline our vision for this work for the district. We outlined the investments that will remain and the investments that would sunset with the ending of ESSER funding, as well as what will occur due to the passage or failure of Issue 11. In this presentation that was provided in September and throughout the fall, the Statement of Facts, it was noted that CCS continues to spend more on facilities and maintenance per school than national comparison districts, which could be related to the age of our CCS buildings. We name and acknowledge that half of our buildings are over 50 years old or older and are considered legacy, which we refer to as buildings that have not been through a major renovation. In this presentation, back in September of 2023, in the Statement of Facts, we also noted that we anticipate a need to consolidate buildings to reduce overall building costs regardless of the passage of the levy. The Statement of Facts is still on our district website as a reference. And as a reminder, the Board of Education has a policy in which the superintendent creates and provides a list of internal and external participants for approval by the Board of Education to seat a facility task force under Board Policy 7105. The Board of Education unanimously approved and recommended the task force at the February 6, 2024 Board of Education meeting. At that same meeting, during the February 6 board meeting, we outlined a timeline in which the facility task force will meet from February to June with a goal of meeting twice per month in different sites across the community. Our goal was to have a final recommendation to address our facilities to the Board of Education by the middle of June this year. Approved recommendations will begin to take effect no sooner than 25-26 school year. As we look to make these adjustments, the way we utilize permanent improvement funds will be different moving forward. No longer will we be operating on a run-to-fail model. We will continue to be the best stewards of our funds and allocate our resources based on the needs of our students across the district. Since February 6th, we've held 7 meetings of the Community Facilities Task Force. During these meetings, task force members established meeting norms, reviewed survey results, established criteria for consideration, held 2 rounds of criteria review, and participated in map simulations and scenario considerations. An additional meeting was added to the schedule to ensure task force members had enough time to consider scenarios. A website was also created that provided updates from each meeting, ensuring transparency and sharing the notes, presentations, and materials from each meeting. We recognize before starting this work that to do it the right way, we must involve our community. This is why we're coming to the Board of Education, our community tonight, with initial recommendations. During the month of May, there will be additional community engagement opportunities for the public to give feedback on the scenarios they will hear tonight. We want to ensure we're continuing to lift up the voice of our students, our parents, our staff, and community prior to any final recommendations being presented to the Board of Education for consideration. The exact dates, times, and locations of these opportunities will be shared at the end of this presentation. During the month of June, task force members will use the feedback received to form the final recommendations, which will be presented to the Board of Education for a vote. At this time, I would like to bring the task force co-chairs to the podium, Mr. Al Edmondson and Mr. Jim Negron. They will walk us through the scenarios that the task force formulated regarding school consolidations and closures.
Good evening, board members. My name is Al Edmondson, and I'm a co-chair of the Superintendent's Facility Task Force. It has been an honor to work with such a dedicated group of people whose goal is to find ways to realign facilities to increase student achievement. There were 3 main elements the task force kept in mind while doing this: improving students' experience, honoring prior tax investments, and evaluating all the cities. I will now hand it over to my co-chair, John DeGrone, as he walks us through this preliminary recommendations.
No problem. Thanks, Al. Good evening, President Vera and Board of Education, Dr. Chapman. My name is Jim Negron, and it's my pleasure to review the scenarios formulated by the task force. Before we dive in, I'd like to direct your attention to the color-coded ledger. Each of these colors coincide with the color coding of the supplemental maps and describe the type of schools in the systems. Purple, K through 12 school; lavender, 7 through 12 school; blue, high schools 9 through 12; green, middle school; yellow, K through 8 building; maroon, K through 6 building; red, elementary schools K through 5; white, program; and gray, proposed closure. Now I'll go to these preliminary scenarios. Recommend the task force, recommendations from the task force. The task force has considered many ideas along the way. In some cases, there are multiple ideas for consideration of some of the buildings. These scenarios are interdependent. Before we finalize our work, we want to hear from the community, their thoughts about the scenarios before producing recommendations to the superintendent and then the board. There are 2 versions of the first scenario. These reflect 2 different ideas for the middle school and for the middle school in South and Marion Franklin communities. In the first scenario, South High School becomes a regional high school receiving high school students from Marion Franklin. Marion Franklin then becomes the regional middle school, which receiving grades 7 through 8 students from South and the 6 through 8 students from Buckeye, and grade 6 students from the area elementary schools. Fairwood, Siebert, and Moeller are expected to be consolidated with other area elementary schools. In this scenario, Buckeye Middle School, Fairwood K through 6, Siebert K through 6, and Moeller K through 6 would eventually be closed. Scenario 1B. In this scenario, South High School becomes a regional high school and then receives the high school students from Marion Franklin. Buckeye Middle School receives grades 7 and 8 students from South, and area K through 6 school remain K through 6 rather than transforming to traditional K through 5 elementary. Fairwood, Siebert, and Moeller are expected to be consolidated with other area K through 6 schools. In this scenario, Marion Franklin, Fairwood K through 6, Siebert K through 6, and Moeller K through 6 would eventually close. Oops, sorry. Scenario 2. Starling K through 8 is converted to a traditional elementary school with grades K through 5. The middle school students, grades 6 through 8, from Starling would attend area middle schools. West Broad, Valley View, and Lindenberg would be consolidated with other area elementary schools. In this scenario, West Broad, Valley View, and Lindenberg would eventually close. Oops, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, there are two scenarios and there are two versions of scenario 3. The first is the gifted program is moved to Everett facility to Dominion Middle School and Oakland Park Elementary School. The gifted program 6 through 8 would go to the middle school, while elementary grades would go through Oakland Park. Cranbrook and Hubbard Elementary Schools would be consolidated with other area elementary schools. In this scenario, eventually, Everett facility, one of our oldest, would close, and as would Cranbrook and Hubbard Elementary School. In the second version of scenario 3, Ridgeview Middle School is consolidated with the Dominion Middle School. The gifted program is then moved to Everett facility to Ridgeview Middle School. Cranbrook and Hubbard Elementary Schools would be consolidated with other area elementary schools. In this scenario, eventually the Everett facility would close, as would Cranbrook and Hubbard Elementary Schools. In scenario 4, Lyndon McKinley becomes a traditional high school with grades 9 through 12, with a new larger boundary with East. The 7th and 8th graders who currently attend Lyndon McKinley would attend local middle schools. North Linden, Northtown, and Innes Elementary Schools would be consolidated with other areas, schools in the area. Duxbury students would return to their home school combined with combined with Fort Hays. Eventually, Duxbury, North Linden, and Northtown would be closed. In scenario 5, East High School would receive Eastmore, and the boundary of East would be adjusted. The old Eastmore facility would become a middle school, receiving students from Johnson Park and Sherwood Middle Schools. Broadley Elementary would be consolidated with neighborhood schools. In this scenario, eventually Johnson Park, Sherwood, and Broadley would be closed. Finally, there are two versions of the sixth scenario. The first, Columbus Alternative High School, which is housed in McGuffey Building, is one of our oldest facilities, is moved to East with an adjustment of East boundaries. Fort Hays would receive elementary students from Duxbury, creating a K-12 arts program on the Fort Hays campus. The boys' preparatory school would move to become the school with the girls' preparatory site, and Broadley would consolidate with other area schools. In this scenario, McGuffey, Duxbury sites would eventually close, as would Old Eastmore, currently the home of the boys' school, and Broadley Elementary. In the second version of this scenario, Downtown High School is moved to Fort Hays, creating a single career center. Columbus Alternative High School, which is housed in the McGuffey Building, which is one of our oldest facilities, was moved to Downtown High School. The boys' preparatory school, which is currently housed in Old Eastmore School, would be moved to become a school within a school at the girls' preparatory site. And Broadley would be consolidated with other schools. In this scenario, McGuffey site would eventually be closed, as would the old Eastmore facility and Broadley Elementary. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Superintendent Chapman, who will outline the upcoming engagement opportunities and will answer any of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Al and Jimmy. The work of the task force is not finished. As we stressed, this process could not be completed without hearing and incorporating feedback received from our community. Knowing this, we have created an engagement schedule that has engagement opportunities in all 6 regions of our school district. On May 16th, 22nd, 23rd, and 30th, there will be opportunities on each date for attendees to participate in a gallery walk and to submit their feedback. In the gallery walks, community members will have the opportunity to view and provide their input on each of the scenarios. On each date, there will be 2 gallery walk meetings held at 9:30 and meetings held at 5:30 at locations throughout our community. There will also be a radio town hall meeting hosted by Radio 1 on June 1st, where listeners can call in and submit questions and have them answered on air. Additional sites will continue to be identified and updated on our website. There will also be virtual meetings held on May 22nd and May 29th for those who may not be able to attend the in-person meetings. The link to these meetings will be provided on the CCS website. As a reminder, all information on the Community Facilities Task Force, including this community engagement calendar, can be found on the CCS website. In June, the task force will use the feedback from the community to produce final recommendations. To be clear, the work of the task force is just the first step of the process of working to improve our learning environments across the district. The administration and the board will then need to plan to begin implementing these recommendations. Before any changes are made, families and school communities would be involved in the process of establishing boundaries for the first schools to be consolidated. Changes will be implemented over time with ongoing community involvement. As a community, we need to be having a regular conversation with the community about the path to improvement of our teaching and learning conditions. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide these initial recommendations from the task force, and we look forward to coming back to you in June with feedback from the community and the final recommendations for consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. I do want to thank the Facilities Task Force for all of the work that has gone into this. I know the work is not done. So we thank you. We thank you for the work that you all are doing in partnership with the community. I want to also add that this is preliminary, and it's really important that our community knows that this board recognizes that there's a lot more work to be done here, and we're committed to that work. We recognize that this is a bigger vision. We have buildings now that need to be looked at that are already closed, which is a big part of the work that we are going to see coming out of board committee structures that are already in the process of starting up. And so it's really important that our community understands that this is not going to be an easy lift. It's not going to be a lift that this board wants to do alone. But this is about the next generation of Columbus City Schools. This is about our students. It's about the opportunities that our students deserve. And it's really, really critically important that the partners you heard from tonight, I hope that they help get us families to these community forums. I hope that we can lean on them to ensure that we do get family participation, because we want to hear your reactions to these different options. And so I hope that our community partners can help us in spreading the word to ensure that our families come out to these forums or they participate in the virtual options. We can't do this work alone, and we are not interested in doing this work alone. And so I want to echo and I want to highlight that this is a preliminary. There will be more conversation, but recognizing that this is work that will take years to really figure out. But we are committed, and we're committed to figuring this out collectively, you know, one conversation at a time. So, and my colleagues, as we are diving into our board committee work, there's more work that will be coming out and reporting out as it relates to our facilities, as it relates to our programs, as it relates to our policies, And so I really am optimistic about the things that we will be able to share in collaboration in the work ahead. With that being said, I know, Dr. Chapman, you also have an update or a report on our whole child. Yes. Okay. Board Member Simmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say that I had an opportunity before our board meeting to talk to some of the folks who are here today and concerned about our facilities plans. And I realized after I came back in here that we didn't actually talk about the task force. We talked about how many years they've been with the district, or what class they teach, or what building they've been at and for how long. Why they came to CCS, because whether students or our staff, we all have different paths to the district. And so I want them to know that I have no doubt that your commitment to our students remains steadfast. But I also want to let our community know that I remain firmly committed to realigning our district's resources to better support all 46,000 of our students. Aligning more staff and more resources in fewer buildings with more students remains a key component to our path for success. The decisions we make today are not only going to impact the 46,000 students who will sit in our classrooms today, but they will impact tens of thousands of students over the course of the next decades, hundreds of thousands probably. But I also want our community to know that I have heard you. There are a lot of good questions and really fair concerns about the work that is being done and about the work that maybe we haven't got to yet. And those are real concerns that deserve thoughtful, fair consideration from this board, from our administration, in partnership with our communities, right? Because I think we heard a lot that a lot of times things feel like they're being done to folks rather than with folks. And we have to really work hard. We have to work overtime because it's on us to bring folks along with us. But I want to just echo that there's more work to be done. There's certainly more work to be done, and there's more work to be done by this board. This board is really going to have to take a leadership role to better realign our resources to support all of our students. But I want our community to know that I've heard you, and those concerns are valid, they're fair, they deserve thoughtful considerations, and it's certainly an area that I will be leaning into, and engaging our community in a more authentic way is certainly an area that the committee I chair, the Community Engagement Advocacy Committee, will be leaning into when we have our first meeting next May 14th.
Thank you, Board Member Simmons. Board Member Ingalls.
Yeah, I just had a quick question so that the community understands what they're walking into when they come and participate in a forum or one of our gallery walks. Will they see maps where they can, physically, visually see the schools in our community and where they're located? How will feedback be received? What does a gallery walk look like? If we could just kind of explain what folks should expect when they come to these kinds of forums and events.
Thank you, Board Member Ingalls. So at these sessions, there will be an opportunity to hear from district leaders about the work of the task force. So we'll review the information that we've discussed tonight, and then it will transition very quickly into hands-on analysis of the work of the task force. So there will be maps up across throughout the room so you can visually see what some of the changes may look like. In each scenario, they'll have an opportunity to provide their feedback through discussion. They'll have an opportunity to provide their feedback by completing surveys. And truly, the task force work, when we say that the work is not done, we truly mean that. We mean that these recommendations are initial recommendations, and the feedback that we have received, that we receive from the community during these engagement sessions will inform the final recommendations. And so to all of our staff members, community members, and educators who are with us here tonight, we invite them to join us at these sessions so that they can provide their feedback. Certainly, we heard them tonight. They've shared their comments, they've shared their journey, they've shared their observations, which we have made note of. But we also want to invite them to invite their neighbors, invite their friends, other parents, other community members to participate in this process with us. And the feedback that we receive during these sessions will inform the final recommendations. So the task force, when they come back to the board in June, they will have made some adjustments to their plan based on the feedback that's received from the community. So it will be, again, an opportunity to hear about the work of the task force, what they were tasked with, the work that they have done to date, and then it will be an opportunity to really understand the scenarios that they've been, in the initial recommendations.